Welcome, everybody. My name is Mitch Roschelle. I'm a partner in New York and the United States with PwC, and I lead our business development efforts for part of PwC, and I lead PwC's research efforts in real estate, and I am thrilled to be doing this virtual panel at MIPIM. Somehow we all wish we were in Cannes and it was March, but unfortunately that's not the case. So we're going to go with the next best thing, which is a virtual version, and I'm thrilled you could join. I have two fantastic panelists that you're going to hear from very quickly. First, you're going to hear from Anastasia Osipov. I think I did that correctly. She's smiling, yes. So I got that correctly. It took a little bit of practice, but I got it correctly. And Thomas Lamson. So the format for this half hour is going to be first an introduction from the panelists. They will be doing that themselves. They'll be explaining a little bit about their background and their organization and their role in their organization. And then we will jump into a dialogue between the three of us on the current state and future state of serviced apartments. Obviously, a sector that, like most, have been disrupted by this global pandemic. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Anastasia. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mitch. So I'm a development manager for Adina apartment hotels. We are part of a family-owned business from Australia, and we operate over 80 hotels worldwide. In Europe, we started over 12 years ago with our extended stay product. So we're quite familiar with the German market, especially, as well as Copenhagen and Budapest. And recently we started expansion, so we have 8 more projects under construction at the moment, and looking to expand in new markets in Benelux and UK.
Excellent. So I'm going to turn it over to Thomas for his quick introduction, and then I'm going to jump back to you, Anastasia, so don't go anywhere. All right.
Thanks, Mitch. So Thomas Lamson, I'm the head of development and project management at Adagio. We've been created also 13 years ago, in fact, 2007. We're a JV between Accor Group and Pierre Vacances Center Parks. We operate 115 apart hotels throughout the world, including 100 in Europe and mostly in France, with slightly more than 80 apart hotels. We have the goal to double, or to go from the 115 to 172 apart hotels in 2023. And we have, as of today, 47 projects in the pipeline.
Excellent. I'm going to come back to Anastasia for a second, but Thomas, you too, don't go anywhere. So your organization, Anastasia, has been around for quite a while. So right. Let's for a second pretend that this global pandemic didn't exist, because that's like the dream that we all have, right? Yeah. Where was the industry headed before, let's say, the winter of 2020, and I'd like to use sort of that as a comparison to where it's headed now. But I'm curious from your vantage point where it was headed in January of 2020.
Sure. I mean, the outlook was great, right? The extended stay market in general, in Germany specifically, but also in Europe, I would say, was getting a lot of recognition. And the projects that we were offered were just so many that you didn't know where to start. And I think over the years, because we have all the operative experience, we were quite confident that we could operate those, and that's why we were looking to expand at a much higher scale than we do now. What we also saw generally in the market is that a lot of competition was coming in. So a lot of newcomers, no track record, maybe a cool idea, but not established in the market. And that was something that we were watching very closely, and I think that's also something that changed over the last months.
Thomas, very similar question to you. Thank you, Anastasia. Sort of before all of this, what were the biggest challenges you were facing then? And we'll talk about obviously the challenges we face today, but I'm curious, what were the challenges you were facing, looking at your portfolio, looking at your prospects in January of this year?
I mean, before the COVID.
Yes, before the COVID. We're pretending it didn't exist for a second.
Yeah. So we were on the track to, well, as I say, we're still on the track to double our portfolio. So the challenge was to repeat the tremendous year we've made last year, where we signed almost 20 contracts. So we were on the track to do exactly the same. We are on the track to renovate our portfolio, and mainly specifically the public areas on the new concept called the Circle. And also the private areas, the apartments. So indeed, we had to relook at the expenses, the capex we were supposed to invest. However, as I said, the development itself, it should be normally more or less similar to what we were expecting, except on some areas. As I said, we are mainly Europe, but we're also present in South America, Africa soon, and Middle East, and we see that the impact is completely different in function of the countries and the continents.
I just want to stay with you for a second, Thomas, just to understand when you talk about the 20 contracts that you had done in 2019. Believe me, that feels like 10 years ago, not 6 months ago. Are you buying existing properties and renovating them mostly?
Yeah, no, we're really specific. We are more or less the only brand with Mama Shelter being able to do leases within the Accor universe, whereas now all the major international hotel groups are doing franchise and management. So we are still allowed to do leases, but leases really in Europe and in capitals. For the other regions, so we do the development ourselves, Adagio, and for the other regions like South America, Middle East, Africa, and Russia, we gave Accor the keys for the development, and they're doing franchise and management. So we are able to do master franchise with Accor, leases, management, and franchise in Europe.
Got it. Anastasia, how about your business at the time, maybe this time last year? What were the biggest challenges that you were facing a year ago?
I think, as I mentioned with the newcomers, it was the increasing competition in general. So Adina is a 4-star apart hotel brand. So we really need central locations, prime locations. That means we compete with budget hotels and so on, and we give leases that will change for sure in the future in some way, but back then it was really hard to compete on a rent level.
Got it. So it was an economic competition that was challenging.
For sure.
So looking at your business today, I'll stay with you, Anastasia. Looking at your business today, and we'll clearly focus on COVID. I don't want the audience or either of you to think I'm ignoring it, but I'm just trying to get to the base business before we talk about the disruption. So you're operating in a competitive environment. There are competitors that are in your exact space. Then there's budget hotels that are sort of on the periphery and competitors. How does your organization differentiate itself from the competition to drive the customers to you?
I mean, we are a niche within a niche, I would say. We don't call ourselves serviced apartments, but rather an extended stay product. So with the 4-star quality that we offer, we are very close to a hotel product. We have pools. We used to have breakfast buffet, 24-hour reception, and so on. So the full service pack. And I think that makes us really stand out because our guests are surprised to get the service benefits, but also the size of the apartment.
Got it. And I'm breaking my own rule because I never, when I moderate panels, I always say I'm never going to ask the exact same question to two panelists, but I've done it twice already. So Thomas, just to stick with once you break a rule, I guess it's broken. But Thomas, I just wanted to go back to you on the value proposition, the differentiation of your business versus the competition, and then we'll start getting into the ugliness of how things have changed.
All right, no problem. Yeah, as Anastasia said, we're doing extended stay about what we call apart stay as a note service apartment, which is slightly different, where there's no the same level of services. So we're facing before talking about Adagio itself. So we're facing competition in function of the countries, and indeed Adina in Germany is a rough competitor. We're facing them quite often. In the UK, I would talk about yeah, good job, Anastasia.
Don't worry, we're going to get into that.
We're facing Stay City, really, but on the European level, in fact, we don't have a global, I say, a global competitor. So we're good. We're in a good position to talk about the markets. Globally, we are good at doing pricing and revenue management, as we're doing the revenue management and the pricing ourselves for ourselves. So we're good at talking to franchises and to give a good advice about the price. And as we said, we're doing extended stay, where in this model, the pricing and the revenue management is completely the opposite of the hotel revenue management. It's better to sell on the long-term basis, long stays, lower price, but much higher occupancy rates. So how do we differentiate ourselves is these specific skills, but also the product we are working on. We have three different levels of product. We're doing the Adagio itself, which is a mid-scale product. We're doing Access, which is an economic product. And we're doing in the Middle East Premium, Adagio Premium, which is a 5-star product. So we offer three different scales of segmentation, and we are working on the product regularly. We are working on the new studios called the new apartment, Adagio, which is quite common anyway, but which will be developed by the end of the year for the new projects. And we also worked on a new, which is ready, a new Access product, where we've kept the exact circulations and product, but we have entirely redo the decoration. And I've talked about the circle, which is a new look at the common areas, offering some services. I'll talk maybe later about that, not taking too much time.
No, that's okay. No, that's fantastic. I want to stay with you for a second, Thomas, since I'm looking at you. And by the way, I happen to know, it looks like you're actually in your office. Is that your actual office?
Apparently, I'm the only one in my office.
This is my home, and people ask me all the time. I do a lot of television in the States, and people always ask me if those books are real or is this one of those Zoom backgrounds, but it's real. It's not a Zoom background. It's actually real. So I want to look forward for a second. And you started to, the reason why I'm sticking with you is you started to talk about the present and a little bit of the future when you talked about your differentiation. And so when management got together for the first time on a conference call when this was unfolding, and you started looking at the plans for 2020, which, you know, if you had done 20 deals the previous year, you're starting to say to yourself, well, that may not happen this year. Was there a big, what Americans would say, use the word pivot, but was there a big shift that happened where we said, all right, this is something we can accomplish this year? And I don't want you to give away trade secrets, but I'm interested in sort of getting to the point of how did business sort of realign itself and say, all right, this is something we can accomplish this year, that at the end of, in December, we'll say, you know, we did a good job.
Yeah, indeed, we've been quite lucky because we've signed around like 20 contracts last year, but we're planning to sign more than that. So the ones we couldn't sign last year have been postponed to this year. So we're working, and among the 15 contracts we're planning to sign this year, half of them comes from last year. So
Okay.
we get some security at the beginning of the year before the COVID, and we've been quite secure when we saw the COVID arriving, even though it takes more time because we were planning to sign for Q1, Q2, and in fact, we've signed only a few of them, and a lot of them have been postponed to September, October. So we see that the investors, the developers are taking more time. The administration takes more time to reply on building permit and all the admin stuff. So we're still quite confident that we'll be able to sign the contracts we're targeting, but indeed it takes more time. So this is for the development side. On the program side, because I'm doing two kind of job, and the construction follow-up and the renovation, I've said abandon most of the renovation of the public areas to concentrate on the follow-up of the constructions. And we saw that in function of the countries, the works have been stopped, like in France entirely. Most of them in the UK were in Germany, and Switzerland, they continued working. So I managed to get the team occupied with the constructions, while the renovation has been postponed. But indeed, it was quite complicated to reunite people through Zoom meetings and to get them stay confident for this year. But we managed, and I think now we're back in the office. It's been 15 days now. We're back in the office. It's good to meet together again and to have lunch together. And it's really great to see each other.
Oh, I'm profoundly jealous that you're back in your office. I don't see that happening in my world anytime soon. Anastasia, you had talked about, and I want to go back to it, about the differentiation being around the service that you provide and the customer let's call it customer experience. So right. I want to, and you specifically talked about buffet breakfast being a thing that we may long for one day. So I want to talk about the going forward, and how do you differentiate yourself in a more homogeneous world where regulations and health officials, country by country, stipulating what you can and can't do. So you're now at the whim of rules and regulations about public health, as opposed to what you'd like to do to differentiate your brand. So how are you sort of coping with that, with the mindset and the goal of differentiating your brand?
I mean, we are fully staffed, so we have to comply and make sure that we follow all the rules. The buffets are closed for sure. But now we realize the beauty of our apartments and studios and the space that we offer, the private space to our guests. And I'm sure Thomas has the same, because we can bring breakfast up to their room and they can just prepare it themselves. It's not really necessary to have as much personal contact. And we see that with our guests, they really appreciate having that space, and that really differentiates us in the market at the moment, because sitting at an overcrowded bar in some hotel lobby is not what you do in 2020, right? Yeah. You rather have a bottle of wine in your own room.
You drink by yourself is what.
Exactly, isolated drinking. And that also, I think what differentiates us from other service apartment operators is our very good connections or relations with relocation agencies, but also with top clients from the banking industry, pharma industry, and so on. So they stick with us and they actually prefer to stay even longer.
So I want to stay with you for a second, as you just used the words "stay with us longer," so I'll stay with you longer. The lodging industry, and clearly service departments are at the cross section of apartments and the lodging industry. The apartment industry globally, on some level, is sort of the least impacted by COVID, just as a general statement when compared to other elements of the real estate world. Whereas the lodging industry is one of the most dramatically impacted by COVID. So are service apartments on the right side or the more fortuitous side of the cross section of apartments and lodging, where you're less impacted than perhaps the traditional transient lodging industry?
Yeah, I think we're in this golden middle, like Thomas, where we can scale. Either we take more short stay or a more long stay. And when COVID started, of course, all the short stay disappeared, and we were just layering more long stays in our properties. And that worked great because you have people who are stuck, who can't get away because their flights is not leaving, or just people who maybe look for a different place to work. And I think being able to shift and to choose with your concept where you want to go, that's really our advantage.
Yeah. That makes sense. And, you know, when this was all sort of unfolding, and I was doing a podcast in March, and I'm trying to get all the podcasts that I did in March off the airwaves because every prediction that I had was wrong. It was very wrong. The only one that seemed to have been right was, I said, I think one of the winners in all of this may be extended stay hospitality, which is largely what we call it in the US, except for the brand extended stay, but just that concept. And because you had the flexibility, and there will be people that were just stuck in the wrong place and just couldn't get home from wherever they were. And in fact, right now that's happening in the United States, where if you went to, for example, the state of Florida for a family vacation, and you drove from the Northeast, 1,500 kilometers down to Florida as a family vacation, and you can't go back because, truth be told, you could probably sneak back, but by mandate, you can't go back. So they're finding the extended stay products are finding customers that they didn't expect. So Thomas, sort of going to you and sort of looking forward, what's the biggest challenge going forward in this COVID world? Is it an operating challenge that you have to face, or is it a transaction challenge, or maybe it's a combination of both? I'm just curious, looking forward. We spent a lot of time sort of pretending it didn't exist and sort of looking backwards a little bit, but I'm curious, looking forward, when you think about 2021 and beyond, what the biggest challenge may be.
Coming back really quickly on what Anastasia said, to give you a good example of what consists of apart stay, is that we've closed, I would say, only 70% of our stock. So we left 30% of our apart stays open because we had people stuck.
Right.
The one almost living in the apart stays, the international consultant, the Chinese, the Indian people, and they couldn't get home. So you really have a good representation of what an apart stay consists of: simply home.
Right.
So talking about the future, I think what would be the most complex element in our world, the hospitality world, is to reunite people together, to make them live together in the lobby. This will be quite complex and difficult to convince people that this is the new life for the next few years. We have taken already measures, sanitary measures, of course, thanks to our core group on the All Safe label, where there's a lot of sanitary measures like the check-in, check-out contactless, or the reinforcement of cleaning. But this is, for me, the new world for the next month, at least up to the discovery of vaccine. So on the operational side, this will be the challenge, really, and to make the lobby live again. How can we make the lobby live again? In part of the circle at Adagio is to create a family, to organize wine tasting, to organize cooking demonstration, to give the people the ability to like a living room to work within the living room, within the lobby. And this, we see that when I'm going to the Adagios, I see that there's really few, indeed there's few clientele, but the lobbies are really empty. And this is really sad because it was one of the promises we made to the clientele to make a really nice and large family. On the investment side, on the development side, I think we don't see anything for the time yet. We are benefiting from the last year's performances, but as this year we were not able to go to Cannes for the MIPIM, we are not able to go to Berlin for the IHIF, and all the fairs have been cancelled. So I believe next year will be quite challenging in terms of signings because all the projects will be slowed down in terms of process, and we'll see the impact as of next year.
So you rely or utilize, maybe not rely, on MIPIMs and Expo Reals and those kinds of events from a networking perspective to fill your pipeline for future transactions? We need.
It's a good point for our industry is that we need to face to make.
Right.
So it's good to do Zoom, but Zoom is limited to some stuff. So it's good because it means that we need to do economy. So we need to meet people. So we need to travel again. We need to launch. And the extended stay product, I'll make a good ad on that, but why we believe as a starting point, we need to travel again. So we just wait the airline companies to make planes fly again.
Yeah. Anastasia, I want to pick up on a point Thomas made, which was critical, and I want to put a finer point on it, which is he referenced the vaccine. And I'm curious from your perspective, and it can be your personal perspective, not necessarily your company's view, is the existence of a vaccine regionally, globally, the real threshold for things getting back to normal?
Wow. Okay. So my personal view on this is that it probably won't take things back to normal as they were before, not exactly the same. But I also think that people like to forget. And as soon as we have a vaccine, then everyone is going to jump on the plane again, like Thomas said, and then we are allowed to travel and we will do so.
Right.
However, as an impact on our hotels, also referencing Thomas, I think the contactless check-in will be boosted. Maybe some issues around sustainability, because right now we need to pack everything in plastic, where before you were complaining about plastic straws, it's a reverse trend. So hopefully this will find a little bit of a balance. And despite the vaccine, I also think that domestic travel, as we see everywhere already, will pick up a lot again. And that poses really an opportunity for us as operators to speak to those guests and make them spend their vacation in an apart hotel,
Right. So, and I'm going to stick with you, Anastasia. When you look at, and I agree with you. I think that the world is clamoring for a vaccine because we all want to get back to normal. I think we all have distant memories of other crises in the world, and we like to forget them by doing something different. So I agree with you. However, I think operationally, to stick to the mundane of our business lives, I think there'll be some permanent changes, right? So my question for you is, some of those changes, contactless check-in, the buffet breakfast, I can't not continue to talk to you about the buffet breakfast.
Me neither.
Do those ever return? So one of my observations from the U.S. vantage point, because unfortunately I haven't been out of this this country since January, out of the US, that is. The view is that some of the changes could be permanent because there were costs associated with certain offerings, whether it be in any aspect of real estate. But we're going to use the buffet breakfast as the case study. Obviously, that's an expensive proposition that was an amenity for which it was a cost center, not necessarily a profit center. Do businesses use that as an opportunity to get rid of something? And I'll give you another example. The airlines have eliminated certain elements of their service offering, and airlines, used to give away free things on airplanes, and every time something happened throughout history, they used it as an opportunity to take it away. So, do we lose certain elements of the customer experience permanently, and COVID becomes the excuse, but there was really another reason?
I hope it accelerates the development of getting rid of buffet breakfast and of check-in counters. So that is actually an advantage of COVID.
Yeah.
I think we're not using it as an excuse to take it away, because it comes with additional operational work to prepare every single breakfast, bring it up to the rooms.
Yeah.
And guests also don't mind it, and they don't see it as a disadvantage.
Right.
The only thing that I would maybe say is, by the way, we're also putting a lot more effort, as Thomas mentioned, in the housekeeping and the cleaning and safety standards. So we're giving something in return. But what will probably suffer is the community aspect. Yeah.
Right. And which Thomas talked about as well. We're getting a little tight on time, so I'm going to give Thomas the last word. Since Anastasia, I gave you the first word. And Thomas, real quickly, in a minute or less, one of the things you talked about was your global expansion. And I'm curious if geopolitics, which have certainly shifted quite a bit in light of COVID-19, if that has changed your focus on expansion at all.
If we talk about Europe first, I would say that it's not the COVID itself, but the Brexit, which has had a tremendous impact on the view of Europe for the travelers, the investors. I would say that it remains one of the key countries where we want to expand. So there's no change, and the COVID hasn't changed neither our will to expand there. It will be certainly more complicated. We have dedicated a person, a developer over there based in London, in order to be locally based. So we've taken the measures to be certain to develop in the UK. For the rest of Europe, I don't see any short-term difficulties. This is not the case for Southern Europe, Southern America, and specifically Brazil, where we have 8 properties there. And I'm seeing that it's been some years, I would say, that the politics influence the economy, and I don't see many development in the near future. Middle East is also the case, but it's also the case for the existing stock and the pipeline, which is already really strong. The COVID itself for Russia, where it's a really large country, we've signed in Sochi a large asset, 450 keys, and we're about to sign 700 keys in the access segment. So, in fact, there's really few countries where I see the politics or the COVID has had an impact on the short term nor the long term.
Okay, well, that was fantastic, and you stuck to the time, so I thank you. So we are unfortunately out of time. As we all hope and pray, next year when we do this, we'll be doing this in March in Cannes of 2021. Between now and then, I wish everybody health, safety, and that extends to all the folks viewing. Safe travels when we can start traveling again, and we hope that soon. And thank you all for your time. Thomas, thank you. Anastasia, thank you. And for everybody viewing, thank you very much.